Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think everyone who is a participant has been portaled into the main meeting from our practice session, but I'm going to give it a few more seconds just to make sure. All right. So I want to welcome everybody to the July 21st meeting of the Zoning Preservation and Development Committee of ANC 1B. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to get us started. We have quite the agenda today, and so I want to make sure that we have enough time to get through everything that we have on our list. My name is Christian Brandt. I'm the chair, and I'm going to get us started with some roll call of our committee members, and then I'll go over the rest of the agenda, and we'll get started. All right, so I'm going to mark myself present. Commissioner Kensek. No. Committee member Jason Bello is not able to come. Karen Brueggemann. No. Frank Chauvin. No. Karen Gall is going to come later, but I'm going to mark her no for now. Simon Handelman. Ian Hawksworth. No. Joel Heisey.
Present.
Yanyi Hong.
Yeah.
Daniel Kramer. Alex Smith.
Here.
Bruce Flippins is hopefully coming later. And for some reason, Patrick, you are on here.
I've never been on that list, but I'm always here.
You're here. I'll add your single member district in a sec. All right, so we do have quorum, so we can proceed. Our first item on our agenda is the discussion of the 1111 and 1113 V Street building collapse, specifically the after action report, the ANC's resolution that was passed at the last ANC meeting, and next steps. And we do have some staff from the Department of Buildings who have joined us today to discuss that. After that, we will discuss 1203 T Street, which is a historic preservation case. The case number is 25-328. After that, we will have three presentations. One is a presentation on alley lots zoning regulations from the Office of Planning. One is a presentation on the omnibus zoning bill that is also from the Office of Planning. And then there's also some text amendments regarding rear additions that is also from the Office of Planning. So without further ado, I want us to get started. And so I'm going to invite our staff from the DOB to join us as panelists. So they should, Alex and Nicole, you should both have received panelist. Fabulous.
Christian, if you see a Jeff Reese as a
yes,
can you make him a panelist as well? He's deputy chief building official.
Great. I just promoted him, hopefully. Let me try that again. Okay, great. He's joining. All right. So I think based on so just so that everybody who is here is aware, we're joined by a few staff from the Department of Buildings. This is in reference to the building collapse on December 23rd, 2024, at 1111 V Street, 1111, 1113 V Street. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cross and Ms. Rogers and Mr. Rice to first sort of talk a little bit about the after action report, pulling out some key pieces of information that are important for us to know. And then for this conversation, I want to make sure that we're focusing on next steps, both in terms of what the ANC or the ZPD should be doing or advocating for, and then also any next steps that DOB that you all are planning that you think we should know about. So, but I think to get us started, it would be helpful to do a quick overview so that committee members and also everyone who's in the audience is up to speed about what is in the report and what's been going on. So I'll turn it over to our DOB team, and so that's all you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I will
evening.
go ahead and get started. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. So thank you, ANC 1B, for the opportunity to meet with you this evening to share actions DOB has taken and continues to take regarding the collapse at 1111 V Street, where Edgar Cifuentes tragically lost his life. I can't express enough the seriousness of this incident and that DOB is committed to ensuring safety as our priority. I do want to mention first, and I will go into details on how we got to this point, but the property is currently under a stop work order, and we have authorized incremental work to primarily stabilize the construction site. As you all have likely seen, on June 25th of this year, DOB released on our website the after action report. And that report details our review immediately after the incident and actions taken to further monitor and enforce compliance at the site. We've also implemented a few measures to ensure that incidents like this, as much as possible, do not occur again. This is DOB's first ever after action report. It definitely will not be the last. One of our primary goals for completing this report is to be transparent on our process, document our steps and procedures, and reviewing the collapse, being able to identify gaps of noncompliance, areas of improvement, both internally and externally, as well as providing a compliance path for the subject property. A part of this is to really enhance our overall public trust in our oversight capabilities. So as a result of this incident and completing this report, we have taken some measures, again, as noted, and I'm going to highlight 3 primary measures. I want to mention that we are continuously working to apply enhanced scrutiny to projects involving underpinning work and excavation work. So within the last few months, we have retained a special inspections inspector. This inspector has conducted a series of oversight inspections for projects throughout the city, which include spot checks throughout construction process on projects that do require special inspections. With doing this, we have issued numerous corrective actions and warnings and notices to special inspection agencies for noncompliance. This added layer of review has helped to enhance our ability to verify construction activities that do require special inspections and ensuring that those projects are occurring and proceeding safely in accordance with the building code. A second item that we've done is we have issued and published an administrative bulletin. This was back in February, where we clarify the role of the special inspections agencies. A part of their role is to ensure that inspections are occurring in the appropriate intervals based on the scope of work. and that work that involves major structural work is occurring in accordance with the approved structural sequencing plan. We have instituted monthly meetings with special inspection agencies that are approved by the agency, as well as third-party approved regulatory inspection agencies. Through these meetings, we reiterate expectations. Also, we discuss things that they're seeing in the field so that we can, as much as possible, proactively intervene. So let's dive into the after action report. I want to highlight the major actions that DOB took to complete this review. Upon our review of the incident, we conducted an oversight review of all the special inspection reports that we received. We did this to identify any gaps, deficiencies that may have been overlooked, or things that should have been flagged to the contractor or the structural engineer of record. We analyzed all documents and reports received to determine if there were any contributing factors that could have led to the collapse. The owner, through this process, was also required to provide engineering reports to capture current conditions, also work leading up to the collapse, and things that were done immediately after as far as planning to ensure that the site is maintained in a safe manner and is stabilized. There was no activity that could occur without DOB's thorough review to determine whether those steps were the appropriate next steps. We do have skilled staff on our team that reviewed the engineering reports as well as verified whether the reports were satisfactory as far as meeting building code compliance. There were times where the reports provided required additional information, which we require the owner to provide that information to us along with their design team, their engineer of record, through correction orders. We utilize correction orders because they provide definitive timelines and we can outline specific things that the property owner must provide to us for further review and analysis. So upon receiving a satisfactory report, we continue to meet with the property owner, their design team, the contractor, subcontractors involved in order to determine the appropriate next steps. A part of that was granting a limited work authorization that allowed for stabilization of the site. This included site cleanup, ensuring that the site was secure and not accessible to the public. Through this period, DOB continued to monitor the site. We went out to the site at minimum 2 times a week, sometimes more, just depending on the information that we needed to verify. We also met with the neighboring property. DOB also, we've issued roughly 5 corrective actions and notices to the property owner based on the findings of the incident. This also includes fines totaling over $50,000. Some of that was assessed based on actions that DOB took to help stabilize the site. Based on the above actions, and as detailed in the after action report, we did identify a few findings. One of those was lack of effective communication amongst the design team, specifically the structural engineer of record and the contractor executing the work. A part of this was the fact that the structural engineer was not monitoring activity from the general contractor to include sequencing. The general contractor did not retain a shoring engineer as reported. And there were also no instructions or oversight from the structural engineer of record on how the shoring should have been executed by the general contractor. There was a failure to provide monitoring devices for temporary wall supports and shoring for the excavation. There was just continued lack of direction from the structural engineer on the shoring methods and removal of the existing structures as per the approved sequencing. There was also great overlap on the sequence of the construction and demolition that was taking place. We found that they appear to be occurring concurrently, and this included underpinning, excavation, and foundation work. So those were the core items that we found through our review that are detailed in the after action report. I do want to reiterate that the property is still under an active stop work order, and any and all work must be approved by DOB through incremental limited work authorizations. We have implemented this approach to ensure that any work that is authorized is conducted safely and in full compliance with the building codes. At this time, the only work that has been authorized is for temporary bracing. We were recently at the property today to inspect what has taken place. We will continue to meet with the property owner, the special inspection agency, and the property owner's design team to monitor all activity every step of the way. We want to ensure that the site is maintained safely and that any activity that is authorized is fully compliant with the appropriate standards and safeguards that are incorporated in the building code. I do want to note that it is DOB's role to enforce the building code and ensure construction is carried out safely and in compliance. Our focus is to hold the responsible parties accountable. We want to make sure that future work is done to the standards of the code. Other entities, particularly OSHA, they are responsible for enforcing workplace safety standards are carried out by the contractor and subcontractor. I'm sure you all have also been made aware that there is an OSHA report and investigation that took place. I want to discuss tonight ways that we can collaborate and continue to be constructive in ensuring public safety. I look forward to working with all of you, and we want to make sure tragedies like this do not occur again. We can open to questions.
Okay.
However you'd like to proceed.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were going to add anything else. Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers. I really appreciate that. Before so how we're going to do this is that we're going to open this to questions from committee members. And then we will open that to questions from the members, the members of the public who are here in the audience. And I know that we already have one question in our Q&A. So first, I want to ask any of the committee members who are here if they have questions that they would like to get started with. Okay, I have a question that I'd like to ask. So I think so. I've reviewed the report. I also was able to review the bulletin. I did think the bulletin was I actually hadn't seen that until relatively recently. And it is illuminating in terms of the work that DOB is taking, or the approach at least that you're taking in terms of addressing this. And I guess one question that I think is on my mind and a lot of other people's minds is sort of like how where does the ANC, like where should we be focusing our energy here? I want to make sure that the way that we're focusing our energy is in the places that are most productive. And we just I think that I have not necessarily known exactly where the most productive place to focus that energy is. So, I think one question in addition to that, for instance, that's related is um, we have a pretty clear understanding, or at least I have a pretty clear understanding of sort of what's in the report and what happened. But I guess what I'm wondering is, in your estimation, um, are the things that are the findings that you just described things that in like the regular run of DOB business could be identified through your regular inspections, or are these something that your the typical process that you would follow for any building? Is this something that would have been missed by that process and so would have necessitated, I mean, hindsight's 2020, obviously, but would have necessitated like a unique and different inspection process that might not be something that you would have known about, for instance. So, I want to just be really clear. I'm not trying to cast blame or anything like that specifically. I just want to understand, like, and the reason these questions are related is if that is the case, then should we be advocating for like a different inspection schedule or um, like a permanent retention of the special inspector that you referenced, Ms. Rogers, or is there something, that's kind of what I'm thinking of.
No, that's helpful. And it's really been, I would say, eye-opening for us to do this report, because we were able to do such a thorough analysis. I do think a part of this is clarifying the role of our special inspection agencies
Yeah.
and the fact that they need to flag things for us. I do think that based on the reports that we reviewed from the agency for this property, there are details that likely could have been captured that would have flagged for us as well as the general contractor, other methods that could have been put in place. It is, I think, a learning opportunity for us to think of other approaches that allow us to be more proactive so that some of this can kind of be brought to our attention earlier in the process. Those are things that we are absolutely, analyzing now. And I would say that it's helpful to continue to have ANCs be the eyes and ears for places that we cannot be, during certain times of the construction process, continuing to bring to our attention things that you think don't look quite right. It's helpful for us. I have my deputy chief building official, Jeff Reese, on the call. I know that there are measures that we are applying to our process through the plan review and even earlier now in the inspection process to capture some of these things. And we're also working with our sister agencies where if we find that a structural engineer is, not compliant, that we can refer them and hold them accountable so that it doesn't happen for another project.
Hmm. Thank you very much. I did have one other question that came up during your presentation. And I'm gonna try and go back into my notes to make sure that I'm asking about the right thing. I think something that you mentioned is that the um, the special inspect
Just go ahead and read the question. I think it's easier than trying to
Yeah.
decipher what he said.
Yeah, so the question I think it's for me it's about the special inspector. And I guess what I'm wondering is um do you it sounded like from your presentation, and please correct me if this is wrong, that the special inspector was primarily retained to l- to to look at other projects that involved after that it was retained after this collapse to look at other projects that involve the similar um, excavation or similar shoring to make sure that that particular type of activity didn't result in a similar incident happening somewhere else. And I guess what I'm wondering is if, maybe it's too early for this, but if there are plans for DOB to um, sort of make that type of inspection for instances where there's risky, for lack of a better word, activity going on, to institute that going forward, just so that it's like a known part of the inspection process for similar sites.
And that's a great question. This is, I would say, the first time the agency has retained such an inspector, and we are definitely seeing benefits in doing that. So we are working on ways to enhance and increase our ability to do those oversight type of inspections. So yes, that is something that we are absolutely looking to increase our visibility on.
Great. Thank you very much. Um, Patrick, were you going to ask a question that I interrupted? Sorry.
I didn't have a question. I just had more of a comment
Sure.
and I know it probably is going to sound crazy, but I've lived in the city for 40 years, and you guys are just lucky that this has not happened before. And I say that because I can think of a couple of instances that I know, one of which was right around the corner from me, where the same exact thing that occurred in this site occurred in a site that was very similar. It was on an alley. It was dug out and not done right. And the only thing that saved it from catastrophe, really, was the fact that I saw what was happening, and I notified on my own the proper authorities. There were cars driving past it. The whole underneath part of the roadway had collapsed. So this is not a new thing that DOB has not really knuckled down on. I think it's tragic that somebody has to lose their life for the proper authority to hone in on issues that should have been addressed a long time ago. This is something that happens quite a bit in the city, where they do underpinning and some of the buildings are adjacent to others. And like I said, I know for a fact a couple of examples that I've seen where adjacent buildings have had major damage done to them because they were done wrong. So I'm glad that you guys are addressing this. I think you need to keep your eye on the what is that, eye on the prize, or whatever that expression is, and not just poo-hoo this as something that happened once and you come out with some report to deal with it. That this is something that's affected, obviously, the family of the gentleman who was killed. I don't know how he's being, or their family is being compensated for this, either by the owner or by the city or by the lack of support that was given by the person who was constructing it. I mean, those are questions that I think probably should be answered, not necessarily to us, but to say that you find the owner $50,000, probably in the grand scheme of things, is probably nothing to him. He's not getting anything but a small fine, and this poor guy's gone. You can't bring him back. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Thanks, Patrick.
You're going to answer the other questions, Christian, that are in the
Yes, we have a bunch in the
Q&A.
Q&A. Before we do that, I just want to ask if any other committee members have questions that they would like to ask. Okay, seeing none. Oh, Frank.
Yes, good evening, and sorry I'm tardy. Thank you. I missed the presentation, but just a quick question on the requirements for establishing um, a structure next door. It seems to be, and maybe you've made comments on this already. Maybe it's been a past conversation, but my question is: it seems like there's a lot of responsibility on the adjacent lot owner during construction projects. And it's not always clear for the adjacent lot owner. And so if there ever is a problem, such as a collapse of a structure, uh, what measures are required of a developer as they build down and or gut a lot or excuse me, a structure on a lot to preserve and save and preserve the living rights of the adjacent lot owner. Can you tell me how that process works out? In a quick summary, are there any responsibilities under the law to ensure that the developer developing, rehabbing a lot has taken all precautions to protect the adjacent lot?
So I'll mention, because I would say it's difficult to summarize that because it does depend on the actual scope of work. But what I can do to elaborate on, what the requirements are based on the code to ensure proper safeguards are in place when there's work occurring that impacts neighboring property is we have a lot of detailed information on our website, and a lot of this does fall within the building code. It's sometimes referenced as like a neighbor notification process, but it has many layers associated because if there is underpinning work that impacts the adjoining party wall, there are certain things that have to be put in place that we will review prior to that construction taking place. What I can do is I can share a link to some information that is on our website. And if you have any specific follow-up questions in regards to that information, I can definitely assist you with answering those questions.
Thank you. So you'll share a link that summarizes to your website for now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Um, th- Thanks, Frank. That actually did remind me I had one more question. Um,
And there's a
So-
question in the audience too.
Yes, we're about to go to, I see the question from the audience. We're about to go to members of the public. But I guess this is sort of related to the inspector question that I asked earlier, but in both the um, bulletin and also in what you were discussing earlier, Ms. Rogers, you mentioned that there would be, like for this building in particular, there would be more stringent review of work authorizations, for instance, moving forward. And then also that the bulletin references some additional oversight and sort of required meetings, for instance, for those the inspectors. I guess what I'm wondering is if you see an opportunity to, within the building code itself, or within a similar sort of like policy guidelines, to increase or make more strict some of the requirements that buildings have to go through in order to do work like this. Um, I think you sort of alluded to this maybe a little bit, but I just wanted to get ask more specifically.
Absolutely. I mean, a part of completing this report, those are things that we're looking at. And I would say some of the things we can, I would say, reiterate through administrative bulletins like we did for the special inspection agencies. But when it comes to actual changes to the code, there is a separate process for that.
Right.
And it does have to go through the construction courts coordinating board. However, I don't want people to be deterred in, making recommendations for things that we can review that make sense. You know, we are absolutely looking at more ways to enhance within the review process before things get started. Again, to as much as possible, eliminate any risk of something like this incident.
Great. All right, I'm just finishing my notes. All right, I'm going to move us to some questions that we have from the members of the public who are in the audience. And I'm going to start with some of the questions that we have in the chat. And then I also see that Krishna Kumar, you have your hand up. So one question, Mr. Cross, you already answered. And that question was from Skip Keats. I'm a resident in 5D07, where the other building collapsed on June 19th. Is DOB conducting a similar report on the collapse in my neighborhood? And the answer to that is that you added was we're looking into that collapse as well, and we'll perform an AAR. I'm wondering if there's anything else that's worth mentioning about that before we move on. Or is
I
that
will
answer
mention
sufficient?
that
Oh,
that
go ahead,
property
sorry.
is still currently under an active stop work order.
Great. The H Street one.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so our first question is from Dave Maloff, and that is it's actually two questions, sorry. So one is a request, specifically that some of the items that you mentioned now are in our meeting be added to the AAR, sort of like as an addendum or as a revised AAR, just to document those. And Mr. Maloff has offered to enumerate what those might be if that's helpful. But the second one is a request to release the permit numbers and locations of the 34 special inspections that page 2 of the AAR report says have been conducted elsewhere in DC. Or, yeah, let me make sure I'm reading this right. I think you can both see these questions because you're panelists. So, but that is the question, wondering whether or not it's possible to have the sort of details of the other inspections that happened as a result of that you were referencing earlier, Ms. Rogers, as a result of the hiring of that special inspector, if those could be made available and public to members of the ANC. I think you're on mute still.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Happens all the time.
I will have to get back to you to confirm whether we can release that information. It may require a FOIA request. So I just want to verify that.
Great, I can follow up with you about that.
Perfect.
And then a question from Chuck Elkins. Could you clarify what penalties have been issued? I'm assuming this is in regard to the property owner, but could you clarify what penalties have been issued? How much was the total? Was the SCR who you described failed on a number of matters issued a fine, or was any action taken against that individual?
So I will get back to you just to confirm the exact fine amount. A part of what has been assessed to the property owner is a special assessment, which was assessed as a lien to the actual property based on abatement work that DOB did to stabilize the site. We are also working with DLCP on holding the structural engineer of record accountable for deficiencies that we have found.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm skipping a little bit ahead because this is another comment related to the question that was just answered, but that was also from Mr. Elkins, and that says, and he just says that according to the DOB dashboard, the fines have been $15,000. I don't know if that's.
So I will have to just verify what's on the dashboard. You know, because the property also is still actively in a stop work order, you know, there may be a potential for other things to come out of that. But I will have to get back to confirm the actual fine amounts, that breakdown.
Great. Okay. We moving on. We've got some additional questions. I'm gonna go first to Mr. Kumar, who's in the audience, and then I'll return to some of the additional questions from members of the public, and then Frank, I see your hand up. So, Mr. Kumar, if you should be able to unmute to ask your question.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I really have one comment and I think three questions. And I guess it's two comments, really. First, I just want to say thank you both to the ANC and to DOB for showing up and taking the time to do this. It has been very much appreciated. Your engagement with the ANC and with the community is definitely very appreciated, and the work that the ANC has done on this has been very appreciated. My other just quick comment is, I guess, a little bit more directed at Nicole or the other gentleman from DOB who I can't see on my screen. You know, you've mentioned that you've been going out to the site. One thing that I have noticed is that there's a lot of erosion taking place with the rains that we're getting, and I definitely have some concerns about that. In particular, as Patrick kind of referenced, if you look at the footings for where 1111 were next to the alley, there's a little bit of a gap there between that and the alley, and I think there's some erosion occurring there. I just wanted to flag that for DOB on this call, and hopefully you guys can find a way to address it. In terms of questions, like I said, sort of three parts. So the first one is I'm just a little confused because reading through the action after report and then listening to what Nicole was saying today, I'm just a little confused on who this special inspector that was hired to do these things, because I didn't actually get that from the report. And maybe she could just clarify a little bit. I mean, it's just, if from her description, it sounds like it's someone from outside of DOB who's doing this. I mean, do we have a name? And you also sort of reference, is he going to be doing this going forward? I guess I just could use a little bit of clarity on there, because that was, I didn't take that away from the report, unfortunately.
So I'll mention that this is a contractor that we have utilized. So it is, I'll confirm the exact date that he has started, but it has definitely been less than, I would say, 5 months that this person has been with us. And also, Mr. Reese on the call may be able to further elaborate on our special inspection inspector and their onboarding.
Yes, good evening. As Ms. Rogers mentioned, we did hire a special inspections inspector as a contractor. It is currently not a position that the department holds. We have third-party oversight inspectors. However, special inspections are very specialized in nature as they pertain to soil, concrete, asphalt, structural steel. The special inspector that we have has a degree in civil engineering and over 16 years experience in special inspections. He's a solid performer and fully aware of the requirements. We performed over 151 inspections thus far. We've issued warning letters
and orders to correct for violations that we've seen in the field. So this addition has been great, not only for the community, but for the agency.
Well, that's very, very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Reese, for that additional detail. And so I just wanted to move on to the bulletin, which I think was issued sometime earlier this spring. I don't actually see the in February, so well before the after action report. And I guess where I'm going with this is looking at it. It basically says that the pre-construction minutes must be submitted to DOB for review and must be approved prior to the commencement of work. And I guess where I'm just a little confused on that is, isn't that already what's supposed to happen?
So yes, the bulletin was more of a clarifying action pertaining to sequences of construction. The bulletin mentioned, or not, well, the bulletin mentioned it, but it's also in the special inspections manual that it talked about sequence. Well, it was a little bit ambiguous and gray. So the chief building official wrote the bulletin to clarify that all special inspections and sequences thereof shall be followed to a T from A to Z. So that was more of a clarifying document for all the special inspection agencies. We had meetings with them and conversations. It's nothing different than what they may have been doing, but now it's in writing and it's clear to them that they're there to watch from A to Z, and there's no mistake about it.
Okay, so would it be fair, and I don't want to try to put words in your mouth, so no, if you don't want to say this, that's fine. But I mean, so it's more of a reiteration of what already of pre-existing policy. There's not really a change in policy in that bulletin.
Yes.
Okay.
It was a clarifying document.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you're sending over for the licensing review. I'm going to get my terms wrong because I am not a structural engineer. The engineer of record here, and maybe Mr. Cross can assist a little bit in this question too. I mean, did you sort of describe the findings and documentations of what DOB has found from this and provided to them, or did you just give them a name? Because this is really technical information, and I think it's really difficult for anyone to try to process it. I know that's been my difficulty, is I spend hours just trying to understand what some of these words mean, because this is just such a different field than being an attorney. And so I'm just curious what you sort of were able to provide to them to help them along in their process for them to come to their conclusion.
So I'll mention, we do work with our Office of Strategic Code Enforcement, and they have an investigator who was also a part of our review of this incident. And they prepare a package that identifies non-compliant items that we document. And they will also review the information that we refer to them, and they will do a deeper dive based on the standards that their professional licensing board holds and administers. So we do provide detailed information as to what we found, why we are referring them, and that information is what they review to take that next step.
Because so on this sort of, this is my last point, and I'll shut up then, is what you're saying is that sort of the standard review here would be the appropriate professional standards in that field.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's very helpful. Again, thank you, Alex, to all, Mr. Reese, for coming in today. Very much appreciate you communicating. I know it's not fun, but it is appreciated.
Thank you, Krishna. Okay. I want to do a quick time check. It is 7:30. We have some other things on our agenda that I want us to be able to get through. And I'm also just cognizant that we have a bunch of questions left that are still to answer. So I am going to I think there's one sort of relatively complicated one from Mr. Maloff that I'm going to ask that we follow up via email with. So I'm happy to send that email, and then I'll make sure to provide your answers to the committee in our next committee meeting. And then there are a few additional questions. One from Mr. Maloff is, what efforts by the contractor or the district's government are being made that you are aware of to compensate the deceased's family in any financial degree?
So we are unaware of anything, any efforts between the contractor and the family, as well as district government and the family.
Okay, thank you. All right. We did have another question from a member of the public. There's two additional questions, and then Frank, I'll turn back to you, and then I think we'll open it up for committee member comment, and then depending on comments, we can decide on what our next steps we'd like to be. So this question is, what about condemned structures and non-active sites that engineers have deemed at risk of collapse, such as Talbot Street, Morris Street Southeast? What about other properties in this scenario, given H and 19th and 9th, I'm assuming is what that means? How are we protecting similar at-risk properties and their neighbors? I think some of what you mentioned earlier, Ms. Rogers, sort of talks to this, but I wonder if you could just add to that. And I'm sure this attendee would be able to provide more information on the two reference properties, if that's helpful.
I would definitely say we have taken proactive measures to, like, for instance, at Talbot, to assess the structure, and we will continue to do that and to monitor. What wasn't clear on the other address?
I think the individual who added this is just referencing the other address in a way that makes it seem like they're concerned of structural collapse. And so I guess the sort of question there is, like, it sounds like part of what happens here is that community members can report unsafe conditions, of course, to DOB that they might see. But I think the question here, and often, and there's an additional question that I think is really related, which is, how often does DOB conduct proactive risk assessments on high-risk properties where, we were discussing earlier, where there's properties that have, where there's construction that will be happening that is similar to this type of property. How often does DOB go about doing proactive risk assessments, and is that something that can be sort of ramped up in the future?
That is something that we are absolutely working to do. Having the special inspections inspector is somewhat of a start to that process. In general, we want to be able to expand our ability to do more proactive inspections and to visit more projects that involve this layer of structural work. That is absolutely a goal that we have. And we want to be able to utilize more inspector, I would say, oversight inspection efforts and approaches. So that's something that we're working towards.
Great. I see a member of the public with their hand up, Shilpa Khatri. I'm going to allow you to talk to ask your question. Oh, hands down. Never mind. If you do have a question that you'd like to ask and you'd rather put it into the chat, please definitely feel that you can do that. Frank.
Yes, thank you. Two questions on the procedure that DDOT uses for collection of fines or collection of or investigation. I heard Ms. Rogers mention that they would be seeking compensation from the engineer, the structural engineer on this matter. Am I correct, Ms. Rogers? I believe you noted that when I first joined the call, there was some perspective that they would be sought for liability or their insurance on file. Did I hear that incorrectly? And then I have a follow-up.
I did not refer to that. Perhaps you may be referencing the special assessment, which is based on some of the work DOB did in order to secure the site. But nothing in particular to requiring collections from the structural engineer of record.
All right, and then my second one is also has to do with the assessment, either what you just delineated or an assessment for, was there another assessment for protocol violation of the law, or was it just collection, or was just an assessment as you just described?
So I mentioned that we did issue notices and correction orders. A part of when we issue like a notice of infraction, there are fines that are tied to that. So a part of what has been assessed to the property includes fines as well as that special assessment for work that DOB contributed.
All right, and then, thank you. And then that gets to my related follow-on. What's the process to collect those two iterated fines? Do they go to the Office of Administrative Hearings, or are they just assessed and collected through your department's own right?
So the fines that are assessed based on the notice of infraction do go through the OAH process. And when we assess special assessment fines, they do go through a different mechanism, which they are often assessed, or they are assessed as a lien on the actual property.
So thank you. So the lien then will be handled by your office?
So we do refer that to, I believe, and Alex Cross, feel free to jump in.
It's the Central Collections Unit handles special assessment.
Thank you.
Special assessment liens.
Yes, and we do have a very high rate of collection for our special assessments.
Thank you very much.
We can get you that number, the percentage after the call.
Thank you both.
Awesome. Thank you. There are a handful of questions in in the chat, but I think we can I can follow up with you about those afterwards. They are relatively detailed. We're now sort of like going into the committee member comment, and so I'm wondering if there are any committee members who have any additional comments to add about this. All right, I don't see any. I do have one comment, and that is that I found this conversation to be very illuminating and helpful. I'm really grateful that you both that all three of you are here. I think there's been a lot of really great information provided. And I think there's clearly still things that you are all working on in terms of like, especially in terms of next steps. I do think, if not the August 7th ANC meeting, then the September ANC meeting, it would be really, I think it would be really productive if the other commissioners would be able to hear the same things from you about this, just to sort of like really go full circle and sort of close the loop. And so I do think that, and I'm happy to follow up with both of you about this afterwards, but I do think that would be a great opportunity to share the same information at the commission meeting. And I do also think Mr. Maloff added this as a comment in the chat. I do think that it would be, excuse me, helpful to have some of the information, I think specifically about the special inspector, sort of added as an amendment or an addendum to the draft AAR, just to sort of memorialize the fact that that's an important part of DOB's response to this collapse, and it seems like it's going to prove to be really helpful, both for this and moving forward. And so I think it sounds like at least, and I'm interested in this as well, having that sort of the work that the special inspector has done for this, with regard to this, and also as a next step added to the AAR if that's possible. I'm not sure at this time if there's anything for us to make a motion on, unless there's a motion that a committee member is interested in moving.
Christian,
Yes.
I would just suggest, and this is just a suggestion.
Yeah.
That maybe you could ask Nicole, if she's willing, to write up a summary of the things that she discussed to us tonight that can be given to the commissioners in advance of their commission meeting.
That's great.
Hopefully they will be able to quantify their questions and you won't have to go through another 1 hour meeting talking about that, because I don't really think you really want to do that. But I think it'll be really helpful if you can summarize all of the, because you did give a lot of information tonight, which is, I think is really been very helpful. But without having to go through your whole dog and pony show again, if you did some kind of summary report that you could give to Christian, that he could give to the commission members in advance, and then if you came and just ask them if there's anything more that they want to know or have questions relating to it, that I think that'll be a lot more helpful.
I completely agree. That would be great.
I'm not trying to make your job harder, Nicole. I'm just trying to streamline the process.
I can definitely work to summarize what we went over today.
Great.
Because there has been progress. So
Yeah.
Christian, this meeting was recorded?
Yes, this is recorded. I have been taking, I think, relatively detailed notes. I'm a pretty fast typist, so I'll try to get those minutes to post it onto the website as soon as I can. And then also just to reference, we do have some additional questions in the chat. I'll make sure to share those with you afterwards via email so that you can follow up with them if there's anything to follow up with. And then there's also some additional follow-up points that we discussed during the meeting as well. So I'll make sure to call those out to both of you via email. But yes, I do think a summary would be very much appreciated by the full ANC. And so once we have that, we can discuss when it makes sense to share that information with the larger ANC, if it's in August or if it's in the September meeting.
Great. Just make sure, if you can, to send us the recording so we can make sure that we don't.
Yeah, the recordings will be posted. They process a little bit, but they'll be posted on the ANC's website. So once that's posted, I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's all for me. Before we move on to the next part of our agenda, I want to just do one last check to see if there's any additional committee members with questions. Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers, Mr. Cross, and Mr. Rice. I really appreciate it. And grateful that you were able to make it.
thank you. Thank you all. Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Have a good evening.
Bye. All right, next on our list is 1203 T Street. And I know that Mr. Martinez, you're in the audience. If you would actually just raise your hand so that I know I'm promoting the right person, that would be great. Awesome. Okay, so you should be able to make it into. Yes, Frank, you have a question before we.
Yeah, quick question. This is the project we reviewed last month. And can you
Yes,
give an update? I didn't attend the ANC meeting,
of course.
but I understand, I think they didn't take up the issue. Am I
Yes,
correct? Okay,
you are
thank you.
correct. So, Mr. Martinez, just really quickly before you get started, that is a good point, Frank. There has been some conversation about this. So, basically, due in part because I sort of at the time didn't fully understand the sequencing of meetings, I don't think, or was maybe a little bit too cavalier. We asked the team, Chris Martinez, and I think you had someone else with you to join us at our last committee meeting. We decided at that committee meeting that because the project had not been formally assigned a case number through HPO, and that it didn't, and so therefore it hadn't been noticed, that we couldn't vote on it. And so what instead, we heard the description of the project and then asked a bunch of questions, which I think you actually did ask some questions, Frank, specifically about viewing the building from the side. But anyway, I digress. What we eventually decided is to ask or for me to present the case to the ANC at the ANC's next meeting in advance of, but that sort of was dependent on a few things happening. One being the case number from HPO being assigned on time to do that, and the other one being that the ANC would be on board with that. Some of you may know this, but the ANC does have a public meeting called the COW, which I can't remember what it stands for off the top of my head.
Committee of the whole.
Committee of the
Committee of
Whole,
the
thank
Whole.
you. I've spent too much time in Doobie Land, I guess. So the Committee of the Whole, at that meeting, I sort of shared this approach. The committee, at that time, the HPO case number had not been assigned, and so the commission felt uncomfortable reviewing the case, considering that it wouldn't have been made public in a not DOB, in an HPRB notice in advance. And so that unfortunately meant that we had to ask the team to come back today. So that's where we stand on that. That answer your question, Frank? I'm going to take that as yes. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, fabulous. All right, Mr. Martinez, thank you so much for your patience. We are running a little bit behind, so I appreciate your willingness to stick around with us. I don't think we need to go into a lot of detail because my understanding is that not a lot has changed about this, but if you would be willing to just, for everyone who's joined us, to do a quick overview, and then if you could touch on some of the questions that we had for you last time, specifically about the windows, that'd be great.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you for having us again here. And all right, so I'm just going to share my screen really quick here so we can go over the plans. I guess I'm assuming everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Sharing is not turned on. Let's see, send a request.
Great.
All right. So now I'll share. All right, I think I am sharing right now.
Yes, we
Can you
see
guys see the plans? All right. Yeah, so as you were saying, nothing has really changed. The only thing that's really changed in these plans, and I believe I gave you or Stephanie gave you the revised, but it was just mainly the front windows, the bay windows that we had in the plans, casement windows, but they're going to be double hung windows side by side. So these bay windows, if you guys can look at the screen, this is the front of the house. So that's the only change or update we done to those plans that are in the historic app, that public notice, So those are the only two things. But in general, so what we're doing here is on the third floor, we're doing an addition, right? We're doing an extension. It's already an existing third floor. We're bumping out the rear by approximately 13.8 feet. And then right before or right after the addition, the extension, we're going to have a roof deck. It's approximately 14 feet. So all this is within the footprint of the house. This is the main floor. This is the second floor. And this is the third floor, which is where we'll be doing the extension. So that's in summary. It'll be brick wall. The side of the building, it'll be brick wall. The parapet will be metal railings. Behind the house will be brick wall and brick veneer. And in the open court space on the side of the addition, it will be brick veneer as well. So we discussed these things last time. But it's a very minimal extension we're doing. And I think the only concern we had last time, the only concern was just simply the windows. And it was just that we had casement windows for those bay windows, and now we're gonna have double hung windows for the bay windows.
Great. All right. Committee members, any questions? All right, Joel, you beat Frank to it.
Oh, good. Just going back to the front windows, double
Sure.
hung is fine. I've always found that HPO requires wooden windows, and your note says aluminum frame window.
So they're double clad, which is okay with historic.
So it's a wood window with the aluminum cladding.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay,
Anderson.
well then it's your labeling is wrong. It should be aluminum clad rather than aluminum frame, because they are two. Aluminum frame is a very different thing.
Okay. Yeah, and
but it's a wooden window with cladding.
that is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's otherwise I have no problems with it. I think you're fine.
Yeah, and as I mentioned last time, we had a board member come to on site to do an inspection, and Imania Price is her name, and we went over all these details.
She's a staff member, not a board member.
Oh, I apologize for a staff
No,
member of.
just
Okay.
Just so you don't get yeah. Anyway,
All
go
right.
ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So we discuss all these details with her as well.
Okay, just as long as you may want to make that change on the permits, because they may not change that. It's an aluminum clad wood window.
Okay. Aluminum clad window.
Awesome. Thank you, Joel.
Okay.
Frank.
Yes. So, can you describe? This is almost the exact print we saw last time. Am I correct? This print right before us.
The only thing that changed is the windows.
Okay, and then the note, I guess. So my question to you is on that second floor, first floor, second floor, right in front of us on the right, front facade on the right, farthest right. It doesn't reflect double hung windows in the center here. That hasn't been updated.
The front.
The front, right
This
where
side?
the cursor is. Yes, second floor, first floor. I don't see double hung. Those seem to be casement windows. That's existing.
Well, that's existing, right? That's
Okay.
all this is showing is that this is the existing. So
Yeah.
over here on the left side is
Okay.
what, yeah,
I
it's
see.
what's
Yeah.
proposed.
Okay. Thank you for that description. And then secondly, sort of a matter off the book, off the screen here. There seems to be a stop work order on
There
this
is.
location. Can you describe that to me a little bit, please?
Yeah, there is. So here you go up to the top of the screen. We already had a building permit for this property. let me see if you guys can see it here. And this is the building permit of the property, and this is a revision to that permit. Now, we had a building permit to fully gut the entire property on the inside. All of it was interior renovation work. So we did do the renovation work, not entirely, and we decided to do a revision to add on the extension of the property. Now, during that revision, while everything had been already submitted to DOB, so most of the, actually, if not everything, was actually approved. The only thing that was left to be approved was historic. So we didn't anticipate that that was going to be an issue, and so we started working on the addition. So that's what actually we got a stop work order by historic. As a matter of fact, by Imania Price, who issued, or she didn't issue it directly. I guess she sent the DOB inspector to go out. So that's actually what happened with that.
So my question is: the work stopped until some corrections done?
So the
It's-
work
it's
is so the work is stopped until we go to the committee and that and they approve that the
addition,
like, yeah, well, the
all
looks, right, like the
HPO.
brick, right,
Yep.
exactly, it's all HBO.
All right, and then my last question, real quick, is: you say brick veneer. Do you mean brick, like a sheet of brick veneer, like it's stamped brick,
No, 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 no,
or do you mean brick?
thin.
Uh, so a regular set of brick.
Yeah, thin,
Okay.
yeah, thin brick veneer. So that that's not on the side of the building. What's visible from the street? That's brick veneer or thin brick veneer. It's going to be on the open court on the inside of the on the let me see if I can show you here.
Frank, it's wood framing that they apply the what they call veneer. It's probably about half-inch thick versus a solid brick.
That is accurate, right? And that's going to
It's
go
wood
that's going
or,
to go
or
in this open court.
asphalted or
And
adhered, whatever word, to the wood that they're. So it's not a complete brick structure. It's just a facade.
Right, I understand that, but I'm wondering if it's if it's a veneer or a stack of brick. It seems like all the other facade is going to be a brick layer veneer, versus the veneer, which will just be in what you call the dog leg uh, of the building.
Right. So the veneer is going to be thin brick. So it's brick. It's not a stamp. It's brick. It's just a quarter of the brick. So and it's going to go on top of as Patrick was saying, it's going to go on top of the plywood. But that's going to go on the inside of the house where it's not visible to the street. The side that's visible to the street, which is this side over here, all this is real brick, full brick.
Okay, okay. All right, and so again, it's the entire rear that will be the veneer, or that just is the dog leg perspective. You go to the existing rear view there,
Yeah.
like show me where the veneer will be in the proposed rear view here.
Okay. So here on what's visible from the street, this entire extension here, what's visible, that's full brick.
Okay.
And then on the rear of the house, the first level, the second level, it's all brick. The last floor, which is where the roof deck is, this right around the sliding door that's back here, this is where the brick veneer will be, and then on the opening court on the side, on this side.
All right, and then lastly, let's see. Sorry, 30 seconds. I am curious. There may have been a rooftop top level roof deck in your prior submission. Has that been removed? I don't see it in this rendition.
No, we didn't have one. Everything was going to be on the third floor.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
oh, right. So
just the rear. is the, do you have so it's just, if you look at what's on the screen right now, it's solely just the bump out from the second floor. If you
Right
go to the right, where's your cursor?
here,
Down.
here.
I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, go to the back. So it's just that rear deck right there is the only a roof deck, and there's not one up on the third level.
No, well, so this is the third level, right? So we got
But not on top of the third level.
no, not there's nothing going to be on top of the third level.
Okay,
That is
okay,
correct.
great. I thought for some reason I recall one being there last time, so maybe I'm misreading. But thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Frank. Any other committee member questions?
Just a follow-up question, just for curiosity, not that it really matters a whole lot. Chris, can you reiterate on Frank's question about the stop work order? Does it say on the stop work order that it was issued by or requested by HPRB? What does the actual stop work order say? Do you know?
Yeah, it does say that. And I think let me see because I do have. I'm looking at my phone right now because I took a picture of that just recently. Hang on 1 second. Specifically, let's see here. I will tell you in 1 second. Scrolling through my phone. Okay, here it is. Mm. Okay, does not say that actually on the stop work order itself. It doesn't. I think where I saw that is in a checklist of things that needed to be done.
What does it say on the stop work order?
It says code section 105.1 exceeding scope of permit.
Okay, so that means okay, that answers
And
my question. That means that you didn't go and get HPRB review.
right, that we didn't. That is correct. That's
It's not,
the
it doesn't say HPRB, but those codes clarify that you have skipped a step. So
right.
that answers Frank's question, but it gives me a little bit more understanding of the fact that A, Amani is doing her job, and B, DLB for once is doing its job right.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Any other committee questions? All right, members of the public. Okay, I will open it up for committee comment.
Chris, can you take this off screen so we can see everybody?
Yeah, thank
let
you,
me.
actually.
Oh, okay. Stop sharing.
All right, I don't hear any committee comments. I'm wondering if there's a committee member who'd like to make a motion.
Alex?
Yeah, if you want. I can help you make it if you would like.
Can I pass on this one?
Sure.
All right.
Frank,
Kristen,
do
I
you,
can-
since, oh, Yanni, do
Chickens. I can make a motion.
fabulous.
I need to pull up
We'll,
the case numbers.
we'll help you out. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
give me a second.
This isn't rocket science. The world's not going to collapse because of a misspoken word.
Yeah.
The case number for your reference is 25-328.
Great. Thank you. I motion to approve. I don't know what the proper terminology is. I've been in so many of these meetings, and yet I
Recommend that the ANC vote to support.
Great. Thank you, Joel. I motion to recommend for the ANC to support the modifications to
1203 T Street. That's HBA 25-328. And is there anything else, Christian?
A rear addition.
And the rear addition.
All right, so what if we said support the modifications, including the rear addition?
Yeah. Support the modifications, including the rear addition. Great.
All right. Okay, thank you, Nani. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Was it seconded?
Oh, we need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Patrick. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. I see 4. All those opposed?
The
Frank,
guy have it.
are you voting opposed?
Me? I'm not voting.
No, I'm
You're
not.
not.
I'm sorry. I voted for.
Okay, great. Fabulous. And all those abstaining? Okay. All right, so the motion passes with 4 yays, no nays, and no abstentions. All right, so Chris, just so that, sorry. I accidentally promoted Matt too early, but that's okay because he's up next. So Chris, basically what will happen is that we will take this recommendation to the full ANC, who's meeting on August
7th?
7th. Yes, thank you. I don't think you have to be there, although keep it on your calendar. And if you are able to sit in, that might be helpful. But typically, the ANC doesn't often need to hear from applicants.
Okay.
Recommended that you try to attend.
Yeah.
Just in case
Just in case.
more than likely you will not get any questions, but if you're not there and there's a question, it could create a hiccup.
Yeah.
So I always recommend that you at least sit in as an attendee and expect that you probably will not get a question.
Okay.
Yep. And so basically what will happen is that once the ANC votes on the recommendation, that recommendation will be forwarded to HPRB, and they'll have that added to the case.
Very good.
So that is our next steps. Thanks for your patience. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
All right. Onwards to our next item on the agenda, and that is a presentation from the Office of Planning regarding the alley lots zoning regulations. So I will turn that over to you, Matt or Matthew. I don't know which one you prefer off the top of my head. Let me know if you need permission to share your screen, but feel free to take it away.
Hi, Chairman Brandt and members of the committee. My name is Matt Jessic. I would like to share my screen. Yes, that'd be great. And I also do not have a camera button. I don't know if there's a way to add that.
Oh, you know what? Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to promote you to a panelist. So I'm going to remove your permission to talk, and then I'm just going to promote you to panelist, and I'll do the same for Mr. Lawson and Ms. Steingasser. So you should be able to ask now for permission to share your screen.
I think it's allowing me. Let me.
Oh, great.
Let me see.
Here we go.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. How about now?
I am unfortunately not seeing a screen.
Okay. Sorry, 1 second.
No, take your time. Oh, perfect. It is in presentation. It's not in presentation mode though, just FYI.
Okay.
Great.
Great. Well, thank you very much again, Chairman Brandt and members of the committee for having me here. My name is Matt Jessic. I'm a development review specialist with the Office of Planning, and I'm joined by Joel Lawson, Associate Director for Development Review at the Office of Planning, and also Jennifer Steingasser, Deputy Director of the Office of Planning. And I'll be speaking this evening about our text amendment for alley lots. And Joel and Jennifer will be discussing different text amendments that they're working on. So we really appreciate you inviting us to your committee meeting. Now, before we get into alley lots, the chairman let me know that there might be a varying degree of familiarity with the zoning regulations, and asked me just to very quickly maybe just give a quick overview of the zoning regs, their structure and what they do and don't do. So I thought I'd maybe spend a minute on that, and then we can dive into the alley lot regulations. So if you'd like me to proceed in that way, I'm still happy to do that. Great. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I do think that the folks who are the committee members who are here are generally tend to be a little bit more knowledgeable. So you can feel free to sort of breeze through this.
Okay, I will move rapidly. So I think then most of you know that the zoning regulations are Title 11 of the DC municipal regulations. And Title 11 is divided up into a number of subtitles. And I think for the purposes of alley lots, at least, we don't need to worry about too many of these. So I'll just maybe mention a few of them. Subtitle C, for example, are regulations that tend to deal with citywide issues, like our inclusionary zoning program, like parking, bike parking, loading. It also covers subdivision rules, and that's one topic that we touch on with our alley lot text amendment, because alley lots have their own special rules for subdivision. Subtitles D, E, and F, you've probably come across before on the committee. These are the development standards for the different zones in your ANC. Now you have a lot of RF1 zoning, for example, so that's where a property owner could go to find, how tall they can build, what their rear yard requirement is, what their lot occupancy maximum is, that sort of thing. You also have a lot of RA zoning in your ANC, so that would be subtitle F. Similarly, you have some mixed-use zoning in your ANC, that's subtitle G. The next few wouldn't apply to ANC 1B, but subtitle K does have the regulations for the arts zones. So a property owner with an arts zoning on their property could go to subtitle K to find all the regulations that govern their development. Subtitle U is the subtitle that regulates uses. And in the alley lot text amendment, we are proposing a few tweaks there for the uses on alley lots. And then X, Y, and Z, those are procedural rules for the Board of Zoning Adjustment and Zoning Commission. And we are not proposing any amendments there for alley lots. So that's the structure of the regulations in a nutshell. Zoning, of course, is a tool to govern land use. Zoning is good at things like telling a property owner where on their lot they can build and what the building envelope is. It's good at telling a property owner what uses can go on their lot. It's not as good at things like architecture, for example. And that's where a body like you were just discussing, the HPRB, comes in. Zoning is not good at nuanced things like that. Zoning also does not govern public space, your streets and alleys. Zoning is strictly for the private property and what happens on private property. So that's a super quick summary of the zoning regulations, what they govern. Happy to take any questions if the committee has any about that. Now to dive into alley lots, I think you're probably familiar with what an alley lot is, but if not, it's simply a lot that does not have any street frontage. It only fronts on an alley. And the graphic on your screen is just one example of what alley lots can look like. They come in, a number of different configurations and relationships to street facing lots. And I should say they've always been more restricted than street facing lots in what can go on them and the size of buildings that can go on them. And that will remain the case even with our proposed text amendments. So what are we actually proposing to change? The big amendments can be grouped into three main areas: the subdivision rules, the use regulations, and the development standards. Regarding subdivision, the main change here is the alley width requirement for an alley lot subdivision. Presently, the requirement is 24 feet of alley width is needed if you want to subdivide an alley lot. And we're proposing to reduce that to 15 feet. The other standards would remain the same, such as the alley lot area minimum and the alley lot frontage requirements. But we do propose to add a special exception process. So if for some reason your lot does not meet the minimum requirements, you could go to the BZA, the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and seek relief for your lot. Now, in terms of uses, the first bullet there wouldn't impact your ANC in the lower density zones, R1 and R2. Presently, residential is not permitted on alley lots. Other uses are permitted, but not residential. So we're proposing to remove that restriction in the low density zones. We also propose to allow a second residential unit on an alley lot, similarly as street facing lots. So that would depend on your lot size, whether it's a matter of right or you need to go to the BZA for a special exception. So in that sense, it's still more restrictive than the street facing lots. Just as there's an alley width standard for subdivision, there's a corresponding alley width standard for residential uses. Again, that doesn't apply to other uses, just residential. And in some cases today, you can have a residential use on a 15-foot wide alley. We propose to make it 15 feet across the board in all cases. And then also in regard to uses, we propose to allow home occupations, and these are small home-based businesses that have their own set of rules in the zoning regs. And so we want to allow that on alley lots. So if you live on an alley lot, you can have a home occupation just as your neighbor who lives on a street-facing lot could. The changes to the development standards are really mostly in the lower density zones, the R1 and R2. We're not proposing any substantive changes to the development standards for RF1 or RA zones, which are in your ANC or the mixed use zones. So that was a real quick summary of our changes. I'm happy to get into as much detail as the committee would like, but that was just an overview. If anyone's curious, we have done some research on the data surrounding alley lots. We believe there are about 1,900 across the district. Your ANC, by our count, has 64. So it's kind of in the middle range of ANCs. The most are on Capitol Hill and Georgetown. But some ANCs around the periphery of the city have very few, almost none. So I think ANC 1B kind of falls right in the middle. It's always hard to show alley lots on a map, but I tried to show your ANC here. And I don't know if you can see the yellow splotches, but those indicate the alley lots that we've identified. You have a scattering in LaDroit Park. Right here, if you can see my cursor, that's 9.5 Street. This cluster down here, that's actually owned by the district, used for their, I don't know if that's a DGS facility or a DPW facility, but it's those are actually owned by the district government. There are a couple of other clusters, you know, up here in the Clifton, Euclid, Fairmont area. So again, about a total of 64. And I should note that number does not include alley lots that are covered, for example, by the PUD at 13th and U, which I'm sure the committee's familiar with, which many of those alley lots were incorporated into the PUD. So that total number does not include that. So yeah, there's a variety, of course, of alley lots in your neighborhood. This is 9.5 Street. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. According to Google Maps, the area between Euclid, Fairmont, 11th, and Sherman is called Advanti Court. I had not seen that name before, but that's what Google Maps calls it.
It was named that. It was just officially named that.
Ah, okay. Thank you. That's a good thing to know. So yeah, that one has garages, a couple of vacant lots. That's interesting that it was just named that. I don't know if
Because the owner of those properties, or a number of those properties, wanted to build on it, and under the current regs, you can't build if you don't have a name. So she had to go and get a name done, and it was just done very recently. I just got notification that it was completed.
okay.
It probably all has to do with the postal address.
Yeah, I think so. It's a combination of fire department and police, the post office, but they will not allow, under the current regs, my understanding is they will not allow them to build anything that's not a named connected to, or
Yeah, it's not on a named street. Yeah.
right.
Sorry for the interrupting.
No. That. Thank you for bringing me up to speed on that. That's great.
I mean, I can give you a quick example just so you know, Matt. An example of an alley lot is between Fairmont and Euclid, where the actual lots that are on the alley are addressed on Fairmont Street and Euclid Street. So they were able to build, and they've already done that. They've already built two single-family houses on those lots. But the one that you're talking about is not, the address is not, there is no address listed. So they had to name the alley. And there's a couple of them in the neighborhood. There's one over in 1A that was done, and I believe there's another one in 1B that they're working on. So just to give you the information.
Thank you. Yes, that's something we've heard from other alley lot owners about, that that's actually one of their biggest headaches, is getting the alley named. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, it's that's not something that we deal with. It's actually a city council process, so and a surveyor process. So it's good to hear that that owner had some success in getting their alley named. And just another example, this one is behind the 12th Street Christian Church, currently used as a parking lot. So I just show these pictures to demonstrate that you have a wide variety of alley lots in your neighborhood. Just to touch briefly on the process, when Office of Planning engages in these processes, we always reach out to ANCs, and we had a couple of ANC open houses back in April. Those were very helpful, got some great feedback. We've been meeting with alley lot owners off and on for the past number of years, both individually, and there's sort of a group that's kind of coalesced and has been reaching out to us with their advice and suggestions and questions. So we've taken all this information we got from the feedback that we have, and also our experience dealing with alley lot zoning cases. And we presented our draft text, which I just summarized for you. We presented that to the Zoning Commission back in May. And the Zoning Commission voted to move that forward to a public hearing. So we're working with the Office of Zoning to come up with a hearing date. It will likely be in the October-November timeframe. In the meantime, we'll be working with our other government agencies to get their feedback on the proposed regulations. Certainly DOB, the Zoning Administrator's Office, to get their feedback because they'll have to administer the regs. Of course, DDOT, FEMS, DPW, those sorts of agencies we'll be reaching out to, yeah. And then we anticipate additional ANC outreach along the same lines that we had in the spring, some sort of open house before we get to a public hearing where we will present the final draft of our text amendment to the Zoning Commission. And I should say, we will plan some open houses, but just like with this meeting, we're also happy to, if ANCs want us to come out, we're happy to kind of speak one-on-one, so to speak, to provide an overview of things. We do have a project website. It's under the Office of Planning website, and I can get you that URL. We do have a dedicated email address, alleylots@dc.gov. So feel free to reach out. And I think I put my personal email. Yep. Yeah, there's my personal email address. So folks can feel free to contact me directly with any questions. So that was a real quick summary, but again, happy to take any questions. Would love to get your feedback and happy to go into any more detail if the committee would like.
Thank you so much, Matt. I know I saw Joel and Frank, you had hands up earlier. I'm wondering if your questions got answered or if you still had them.
Oh, no, I thought he had finished, and I just wanted to say, I'm glad you guys are doing this. I've worked with a couple alley lots and they are incredibly difficult. And the 15-foot is a great improvement. 22 feet, it's nice to make that height consistent with others. I'm glad you're allowing ADUs and second units as well. There's a lot of neat little alley places that can support that. So I like what you're doing here. I think it's a good revisions.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
Yanni.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for the presentation. I just wanted to clarify one question that I had. You mentioned maybe a couple of slides ago that it was mostly, I don't remember what it was, but it mostly affected just the R1 and R2 lots, and it didn't really affect anything in this particular ANC. Could you, so it doesn't really change like the development standards in like anything that would be covered here. It'd really just be for like, something that's lower density, say Ward 3 Northeast or Northwest, something like that. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. As far as I know, I could be wrong. I don't believe there's any R1 or R2 zoning in your ANC. So at that bottom section there where I mentioned the lot occupancy and the yard requirements, those changes would only apply in those zones, R1 and R2. The development standards for RF1 and RA and the MU zones, those would stay the same, except as Mr. Heisey mentioned, we're tweaking the height. We're going from 20 feet to 22 feet. That's just to align with the standard for accessory buildings that exist today. And just cleaning up some of the language for the yard requirements, but no substantive changes.
Great. And did you mention this was also true for like residential here too as well, or what did I mishear you?
Yeah, well, in your ANC, as far as I could tell, the kind of largest quantity of zoning for residential uses is the RF1 zone. and the RA zone. So, and as far as I know, there's no R1 or R2 zoning in your ANC. So the RF1 and the RA zones, those development standards would totally stay the same, except for those minor exceptions that I mentioned.
Sorry, I think I was wondering, like, if for the RA1 zones, do they already allow development for, say, like homes on the alley lots, or does this kind of change that?
Oh yeah, sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, residential is already permitted everywhere in the district on alley lots except for the R1 and R2 zones. For some reason, it was always prohibited in those zones. We're just removing that restriction, but it's allowed today in the RF1 and RA zones, and it would continue to be allowed. And we are proposing that, just like street facing lots, that an alley lot owner could do 2 units on their lot.
Got it. Great. Thanks a lot.
Great.
Frank.
Yes, Nayani's first question was actually my prior ready to enter the queue question, so I'm good there. My second question is this presentation available? And Christian, can you send it out to the committee?
I think it is on the project website, correct, Matt?
A very similar one is on the project website. I'm happy to send you this file if you want the exact presentation, but it's almost identical.
And then my last question is going to be off this subject, but Office of Planning text amendment question. So I'll happy to wait till everybody else and come back on that, or I can ask the question now.
Let me, before that, Frank, let me just see if there's any other questions from the committee, and then also if there are questions from the public, and then we can come back to you. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. All right, any other committee member questions? Seeing none. Members of the public who have joined us, if anybody has questions. All right. All right, Frank, feel free to ask your question.
Yes, unrelated to this presentation. Thank you, Matt, for your presentation this evening and this education. Recently, I've read that the Office of Planning, and it's been presented to the Zoning Commission, the text amendments and map amendments for, is it Woodley Park or Cleveland Park? Several stretches of Connecticut Avenue. If you're familiar with that, my question: you're familiar with those amendments that are pending? Oh, Joel, perhaps maybe this question is for you. Thank you. But my question is: did OP study this and present, or did the community come to OP and ask for these text and map amendments?
Are you? Can I just interrupt a little bit, Frank? Is this related to ANC 1B? Frank? You're muted if you are talking.
Yes, it is, because it
Okay.
has to do with public knowledge, my knowledge, our committee's
Great.
knowledge on text amendments and map amendments. And so, Joel, does that question make sense to you?
It does. Actually, it makes totally sense. Hi, Frank, and
Hi.
everybody. Joel Lawson, I'm the Associate Director for Planning here at OP.
Joel, you always confuse me, and your member threw me off too.
I know your chair keep calling on Joel, and I thought, but I'm not even in the meeting yet. It is a good question. Those amendments actually came from the comprehensive plan first. So the comprehensive plan changed, and then OP worked with the community to prepare what was called a development framework for those areas. That process took about another year. And then the zoning that we took forward last month to the Zoning Commission for both Woodley Park and Cleveland Park is intended to implement that new comp plan direction as well as the direction from those neighborhood planning exercises.
Great, thank you. That makes sense. I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, don't have any additional questions for you, Matt. That was very helpful. You are right. There are no RA1. There's no R1, excuse me, or R2 in our ANC. And I only know that because I know there are text amendments to the R1 zoning, and we did not really participate in that because there isn't any R1 zoning in ANC 1B. But unless there are any other comments from our committee members, I think we can move on to the next presentation. Awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, so the next thing on our list is the omnibus zoning. Well, we can do either since Ms. Lawson, this is both of these are you. We can start with the omnibus or we can start with the rear additions, whichever one makes the most sense for you to get started with. I will say I know that the omnibus is quite extensive, so we don't have to go into sort of all the nitty-gritty details.
None of the nitty-gritty details.
I'm happy
I
for us to just
understand
kind
that.
of get a sense of what's included and whether there's some things that are specifically relevant to ANC 1B, because I know there's a lot of stuff in there that's not as relevant to a neighborhood as dense as ours. So
Yeah, I was intending on providing a pretty general overview,
great.
and then, certainly take questions on specifics. If you wanted to do the other one first, that would be fine. It's a much more discrete kind of a text amendment, dealing with just kind of one topic.
Sure.
So if you wanted to deal with that one first, that would be fine with me. And I think that Jennifer Steingasser is going to be leading that.
Great.
leading that.
Yeah, why don't we start with the more discrete one and then we can
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I just promoted Jennifer to panelist. All right, so why don't we start with the discrete one and we can go into the extravaganza afterwards.
Good evening. Hello, thank you. I'm Jennifer Steingasser. I'm the Deputy Director for Development Review and Historic Preservation and Urban Design. I'm just going to go really quickly through the rear addition text amendment. I'm going to try to share my screen as well. Oh, it's asking to invite. Is that?
You might have one of our previous other panels had to ask for permission, which is a little strange because I don't think Matt had to do that. But you might need to ask me for permission, I guess. A little strange.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm getting an unusual set of. Okay, let me see if I can. Matt, can you tell me what you did, how you got yours in here? Let's see. Share.
You know what? I just hit the green share button and it allowed me to share. I did not have to ask for permission, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even get the green button. Let's see.
You might want to put her back into the audience and then re-up.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that again. If that is okay with you. So I'm gonna move you back into the main into the attendees, and then I'll promote you again.
Okay.
Great. Ooh, cancel. Actually, instead, I'm going to make you co-host. And that should enable you to share. All right. Do you have the if worse comes to worse, if you can always send it to me via email and I can share my screen. Or I guess if Matt has it, Matt could share his screen.
Did you make her a co-host?
I did.
So then, Jennifer, you should be, as a co-host, you should be activated on the bottom. You still don't have a green button?
Let me see. Let me get to the right. Green button.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I'm sorry. It was just off. Okay, now let me
Fabulous.
go to this one. It's still not, it does not want to, All right, so call it up on my screen.
I think we're successful.
Oh,
Awesome.
yay. Okay.
Thank you.
Am I in presentation mode and everything?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is very quick. We're proposing to expand the matter of right rear addition permission from 10 feet to 16 feet. And we got to 16 feet by looking at several comp plan provisions called for accommodating universal design and ADA building standards. And in order to accommodate we used a bedroom with a queen size bed as a model, and the minimum dimensions came up to be 15 by 16. And so even though we can't assure ourselves that every by right rear addition in a row house or semi-detached building would be a bedroom, that still seemed like a workable model. So I'm going to move through these real quick. This is the original provision that existed prior to 2014, before we made our first amendment to the rear additions. And you could go all the way up to the rear yard and 60% lot occupancy. That was matter of right. And there were some extreme cases in parts of Ward 1 where the lots were very long and the impact was really severe on some of the adjoining neighbors. So the zoning commission implemented a 10-foot limitation by right, anything more than 10 feet, as measured from your neighbor's property, not as measured from your own. So they limited it to 10 feet, and anything else would be by special exception. You were still limited to your lot occupancy in the rear yard, but the matter of right development was as measured from your neighbor. We're now proposing that that be increased to 16 feet, just to allow for the accommodation of universal design standards as a matter of right, and still provide the protections of anything further would be by special exception for the neighbors. Again, this just shows the three of them lined up in comparison. And this is a kind of a summary of what the proposal does. It applies to semi-detached and row houses. It increases from 10 to 16 feet. It continues special exception relief for anything larger than the matter of right. It clarifies the regulations by establishing some design criteria. The Board of Zoning Adjustment would apply for that special exception. And it continues to provide provisions for rear yard, lot occupancy, building height, and all the development standards you're used to seeing there. The main objectives, again, were universal design. The comp plan calls for aging in place, removing barriers to housing, minimizing regulatory obstacles, and family size housing. We did a quick review from the last 10 years over the BZA cases and found that if we had gone with a 16-foot, it would have reduced the amount of cases in front of the BZA by 44% of what was had been applied for, and probably more so because people would have been more inclined to stay within that matter of right. 10 feet is actually fairly restrictive and difficult. And obviously that has implications in terms of cost and time for homeowners. We also had 2 virtual open houses like Matt discussed for the alley lots. And we also have an email address and a website on our zoning, on our Office of Planning website. It's called Zoning Reviews. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Do any of our committee members have questions? Yes, Joel.
Not a question, just a comment. I am so glad you are doing this. I'm an architect and have gone through several of these BZA special exemptions and have argued that 10 feet you really can't do anything with. Even 12 feet you could have at least done something with. I love that you have 16. I love the background as how you got to the 16 feet because it actually has some basis. The 10 feet was just an arbitrary number pulled out of there. The 16 is justifiable, and I love that you're doing it for, you know, kind of an ADU or a an
Thank
ADU,
you.
ADA, American Disability Act
Okay.
requirements. I'm so happy you're doing this. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. Patrick.
I'm going to back up what Joel just said and commend you with any word that I can use that is I can't even think the right way of saying it. Complimentary to the fact that this is a long time coming. As someone who sat on this and chaired this committee for almost 10 years, we have sat through many cases in 1B that pertain to just the 10-foot rule and whether or not we should allow it and whether or not it was, and it was, you know, I would venture to say that of the 40%, a large majority of them were in Ward 1. So kudos for coming up with this amendment, and I strongly support it.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Awesome. Any other committee members with comments?
Okay. Well,
I'll just add, I totally agree. I also work as a planner, yeah, I mean, this sort of makes eminent sense. So I'm really glad to see something like this being considered.
well, thank you. And as practitioners, if you guys have anything you want, any tweaks or suggestions you want to send our way, please do.
So do you really want to open that can of worms?
Yeah, you never know what the committee will come up with. That's awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay.
I think I forgot to ask if there are community members with questions. So before we move to the next topic, just wanted to open that up. And I don't see any, so I think we can move on to the omnibus bill. Thank you so much, Ms. Steinglasser. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi,
Right.
me then. I'm back.
Yes.
Now it's my turn to struggle with seeing if I can get my presentation to show.
I did just make you co-host in case that is helpful.
Not yet. I'm not seeing it anywhere.
I think we can see your desktop. There we go.
Can you see it now?
Yes, although it is in it's not in presentation mode, but there
we go.
Now we are.
Great. Okay. Well, that wasn't too bad. Thanks. Thanks for the coaching. Hi again. I'm Joel Lawson, and as you rightly pointed out, the omnibus is a pretty big text amendment that we're bringing forward. A whole bunch of issues were coming up. All of them were kind of small and discrete. We thought that this would be an effective way to bring them to the zoning commission, just an expedient and efficient way to get them to the zoning commission. So that was the genesis of this. As I said, there's going to be 24 proposals altogether. Don't worry, I'm going to make this really quick. And these are all text amendments that came from really a broad range of sources. Many of them came from the zoning commission members or the BZA members themselves. Some of them came from other DC agencies, property owners and designers like some of you, and land use attorneys raised some. ANCs actually raised some of the issues. And members of the community. One of the things we did is we looked through some of our past BZA cases just to see what kind of comments we were getting on some of these things, particularly things that were resulting in a lot of BZA cases that tended to be not very contentious. So the main objectives of this were to add clarity to the zoning regulations where clarity was needed. Certainly an overriding and overarching theme is to remove barriers to housing. And so some of these do that, and some of those are kind of procedural barriers, and some of them are regulatory barriers. Some of them are just to ease the administrative burdens. And you mentioned this already, just the number of BZA cases that the BZA and ANCs and staff have to review, as well as administrative burdens for getting building permits, just kind of more generally. And last but not least, when we adopted the 2016 zoning regulations, the Zoning Commission specifically asked us to continue to monitor the regulations and bring forward amendments to make sure that they were up to date and consistent with policy. And we've already taken forward, a whole bunch of text amendments, including some technical kind of corrections, but some more major cases like the other two that you heard this evening, which were big enough that they warranted a separate case all of their own. I think an important part of this is certainly addressing how these address the comprehensive plan. It is somewhat difficult to determine because there's so many of them and they're really kind of all distinct. And they are generally citywide in scope. None of these changes result in a rezoning of property, and none of them result in substantial changes in permitted height or density or the use of a property. These are all kind of tinkering around the edges to a much greater degree than that. But overall, we do think that the amendments would advance specific policies of the comprehensive plan, mainly related to the objectives that were noted on the previous slide, like providing more housing and making the zoning regulations more clear and easy to use in a way, as well as removing impediments to people kind of doing what you would normally expect to be able to do on your property. For some reason, my computer seems stuck. Sorry. There we go. So there has been some community input to date. We presented, as I said, all of these are the result of conversations we've had with people. That's where all of these text amendments came from. We did also hold 2 virtual open houses for ANC members. And that was intended to provide some advance awareness of these text amendments and to solicit early feedback and answer questions about these proposals. We actually made a couple of changes, kind of last minute changes to the amendments that we brought forward based on the feedback that we received from ANC members. And maybe I'll get into those as we kind of get into the details of specific proposals if you want to. So the process, just very quickly, we're kind of right in the middle right now. The Zoning Commission has set this down for a public hearing. That happened on July the 10th or the 11th, early July. And we are expecting to have a public hearing probably late October, potentially early November. In the meantime, we're happy to do additional outreach and have additional conversations. Everything that's being filed to the record is now available on the Office of Zoning website through ISIS. That's probably your best place to look for all of the information. You can also find a copy of the final Office of Planning report with the text amendment. The notice of the public hearing will be part of that record, as will the presentation that we made to the Zoning Commission at the set-down meeting in early July, which has a lot more detail on each one of these proposals that are part of this omnibus text amendment. So just very, very quickly, I'm just going to kind of run down a list of these. And then, like I said, I do have additional slides that we can go to if you want more detail on any specific one of these proposed text amendments. As I said, there's 28, so there's 3 slides of them. And I'm not sure if you want me to read these over, but we're proposing amendments to clarify how to address a split zone property. It's a very you'd think that it's something that doesn't happen a lot, but it actually is relatively common in some parts of the city. And the regulations were just a little bit unclear. We're not significantly changing what you can do, just kind of providing more clarity. We're proposing amendments to clarify the zoning administrator flexibility, particularly when it pertains to a BZA order. So when somebody comes in with their building permits and they've got a BZA order, they've received relief for something, this provides a little bit more clarity on when the zoning administrator can and cannot provide flexibility from that BZA order.
Thank God.
Oh, well, it's a fairly technical change. It's not providing a whole lot of additional flexibility, but it is
That's okay.
providing more clarification.
They insist that you do these BZA modification forms with every BZA permit case. And of course, they always have questions and they can't even find when it is attached. They ask for it when it's already there. But thanks for at least trying.
Well, this might help, and this might be one that you want to take a look at then, and see if it maybe could be doing more to make that process a little bit easier. I think it's important to know that I'm presenting a text amendment as it was proposed to the zoning commission. These amendments can change, before we get to a public hearing. And that's what the additional outreach is for, to see if there are ways that they can be made better, made clearer. So I'm certainly happy to receive, additional feedback in that regard, if you have any on any of these. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just to go, here it says this, there was a 98-page something referenced in the agenda. Would those sections, subtitles A304 and Y702, would they be in that 98-page document?
Yes, I would suggest that if you're interested in any specific one, it would be helpful for you to open up the Office of Planning report, which again is on the Office of Zoning website. That's the best place to find it. And then you can just search for the one that you're looking for.
Great, thank you.
And there's also, like I said, the Office of Planning presentation to the Zoning Commission, where you can see a more detailed presentation of the proposals as well. So just moving, I realize the hour is late, so I'll just kind of move on pretty quickly. Light poles for district recreation facilities are a problem. This is intended to provide a little bit more flexibility for how those poles can be placed on district properties. We're proposing to ease restrictions on balconies when it comes to both gross floor area and lot occupancy. The commission has been asking us for many years to remove impediments to mostly multifamily buildings being able to provide, balconies as part of their designs. And so we're hoping to ease some of those restrictions. Probably the single most common form of BZA relief is for a ground floor deck or a deck off the main floor of your house, and it being non-conforming for lot occupancy. Once again, the zoning commission has been asking for quite a few years for us to look at this, and so we are finally taking forward amendments to make it a little bit easier for homeowners to do a deck off their ground floor and not run into lot occupancy problems. We figure that it should remove, it may mean a reduction of maybe about half of the BZA cases related to rear decks. There is an odd provision requiring a 30-foot lot frontage for an apartment building when you do a subdivision to create a new lot for an apartment building. We're not proposing to get rid of that, but there are certain circumstances where that lot frontage provision does not make sense, such as when you're converting a tax lot to a record lot. You're not increasing the size of the lot, you're just converting it to a record lot so you can do something on the property. And that's technically called a subdivision. And so this would kind of clarify that the frontage requirement would not apply in that case. Green area ratio is a provision in the regulations that kind of addresses environmental performance of buildings, and particularly it addresses stormwater management. It's been in the regulations for just a bit over 10 years now. And certainly in the meantime, DOE, Department of Environment, has caught up in their own regulations and requires many of the things that GAR is intending to address. But at this point, we're simply proposing a little clarification to the regulations. There's some wording that can trigger green area ratio review for what is an entirely internal renovation to a building, like reconfiguring of units or reconfiguring of space within the building. We're simply proposing to not have GAR be triggered by an interior only kind of renovation like that. Some parking requirement changes. There's a rule that requires that if you built a building under the old zoning regulations, the regulations adopted in 2016, that you have to keep the vehicle parking that was required under the old regulations, which is really unusual. Typically, the regulations require conformance to the current regulations, not to a previous version of the regulations. So we're not proposing to change the parking requirements, just changing that one kind of odd provision. As many of you may know, WMATA has recently updated its priority bus corridor routes, and they are now called high frequency bus corridors. So we'll be amending the zoning regulations to correspond to those. The reason that's important is that there are parking reductions available for properties that are within half a mile of a metro station or a quarter mile of a priority bus corridor and what will be the high frequency bus corridors. So it does affect vehicle parking. There's a very odd provision regarding garage door height and door setback. It was intended to apply only to really large buildings with large multi-car parking structures, like underground parking structures. But the wording actually makes it apply to, somebody's garage in their backyard of their house. And the regulations just don't make sense for a garage. So we're keeping the provision but exempting garages for people's houses. There's also an odd provision. Well, it's actually a good provision that requires screening around a surface parking lot. But we're simply clarifying wording that if your parking is accessed from the alley, where the parking is accessed from the alley doesn't need to be screened. So in other words, if you're driving from the alley onto your parking space, you can't really provide screening along that portion of the alley. Screening would continue to be required around the remainder of the surface parking lot. Panto's habitable space affordable housing. This is really just intended to clarify when kind of service spaces like an elevator overrun counts in these requirements. Penthouse space, which is space up on the roof, if it's a habitable space, it typically has an inclusionary zoning requirement or a requirement for a contribution to the Housing Production Trust Fund. This amendment simply kind of addresses how that calculation is done to remove some lack of clarity. As many of you know, we have our inclusionary zoning program, and it's mandatory, and it applies to any project of 10 units or more. We also have provisions that allow a person or a property owner to voluntarily opt into inclusionary zoning if they wish to. They can then take advantage of the bonus height or bonus density that IZ would offer, and in return, they need to provide IZ units consistent with the IZ program. That process is a by right process. Developers and property owners can simply do it, except in the R2, R3, and RF zones where you can only opt into IZ by special exception. That's really contrary to housing policy. So we're simply proposing to remove the special exception requirement to opt into IZ in those zones. Our low density zones, R and RF zones, now require a front setback, and that front setback is based on what the prevailing setback along the block is. Because of some wording issues in the regulations, you could not get special exception relief from that provision as you can from a rear setback for a rear yard or for a side yard, we're not proposing to change the regulation, but just simply to allow special exception relief from it if as a property owner or homeowner you need that relief. And this one is kind of related to accessory dwelling units, but not entirely. Accessory building size. The size is currently limited to 450 square feet, or in some zones, 30% of the required lot area, rear yard area. We're proposing to change that 450 square foot limit. We've heard from many architects, many designers, many homeowners. The 450 square feet in a two-story structure, which is what the accessory building can be, is difficult. It's difficult to provide an accessory unit in that building and still provide parking and circulation, and maybe some storage space for the principal property owner if they want to. So we're proposing to increase the accessory building size from 450 square feet to 600 square feet in the R zones, in the R1 and R2 zones, and 550 square feet in the slightly smaller lots in the R3 and RF zones. I'm getting there. On the other hand, we're also proposing some accessory building side and rear setbacks, again, in the R zones. We'd originally proposed these in the RF zones as well, but feedback from the ANC members, they did not think that was a good idea, and we ended up agreeing with that. So we're not proposing it in the RF zones, but in the R zones, we're proposing that if your accessory building is on a lot line that directly abuts somebody else's property, then a rear setback of 5 feet and a side setback of 3 feet would be required to provide a little bit of space for maintenance, a little space for privacy. That setback would not be required, if the side lot line or rear lot line is along an alley or a street, just if there's another property on the other side of that lot line. Very technical one, accessory apartments in RF, RA, and MU. They were never intended to be permitted in those zones. And I know that's kind of surprising, but the intent of accessory apartments was to allow a second rental unit in the R zones where a second unit was not previously permitted. And in fact, there is existing right now in the regulations a provision saying in the RF zones that an accessory apartment is not a permitted use. And that's because in the RF, RA, and MU zones, you can do at least 2 units on your property. You can do 2 or more units already on your property. And that's without the restrictions that come with doing an accessory apartment. So this is just simply a clarification. It doesn't change the number of units you can do. It's just not an accessory apartment if it's in the RF, RA, or MU zones. A few of our zones, we discovered the description of the zone did not really align very well with the description in the comprehensive plan. And as I noted earlier, it is the comprehensive plan that dictates what should be in the zoning. So we're proposing to change the description in the zone to match that of the comp plan. For example, MU4 is listed in the zoning as a moderate density zone. In the comprehensive plan, it's listed as a low density zone. So we're proposing to make the zoning regulation consistent with the comp plan. And there's 3 zones where we're doing that, MU4, MU5, and MU7. The rest are all sufficiently consistent that they were fine. This doesn't affect you, I don't think. The MU cap zones have a limit on penthouse height. We're proposing to amend that to be consistent with other MU zones of a similar height. The next one I think also does not affect you. It just affects downtown and some MU zones. The rear yard special exception requirement has some very particular window separation requirements that are really hard to decipher and hard to determine. So we're not proposing to change the rear yard requirement or the special exception requirement other than to remove those difficult to calculate special provisions. The other special exception criteria would remain in effect. I honestly don't remember if there are any neighborhood mixed-use zones in your ANC, but if there are, we're proposing to add a designated use to the uses that are considered designated uses in the neighborhood mixed-use zones, and that's daytime care. That suggestion came from an ANC commissioner, and we're really happy to include that. We think it'll add vibrancy to our neighborhood mixed-use areas and provide just another use. It's already a use that's permitted in the zone. It would just now be called one of the designated uses, along with eating and drinking establishment and retail and other uses like that. We're getting there. Redundant building form language. Our use section deals with uses, and our development parameter sections deal with development parameters. For some reason, our use provisions include a description of what the single family residence can be for the R zones, R1, R2, and R3. Those are already spelled out in the zone descriptions themselves of subtitles D, E, and F. So they didn't need to be in subtitle U, and they're kind of confusing having them there. So we're simply proposing to remove that redundant building form language. And last but not least, and this is actually a really good one because it applies in the RF zones, which you do have. And that is that there are provisions that only allow an accessory, an accessory or a second unit in an accessory building if that accessory building was built before 2013. And if you wanted to expand an existing accessory building to include an accessory or to include a second dwelling on the property, that also required special exception. So those were put in place because there were some people who were very opposed to having accessory units in an accessory building. We think it's time to eliminate those proposals. So we're not changing what can be done in an accessory building. We're just removing the requirement for special exception review to do it. So under our proposal, an accessory building with a new accessory building, a new or expanded accessory building for a dwelling unit would no longer automatically require BZA review as a special exception. It may still require review if they ask for relief from rear yard or relief from height or something, but they wouldn't need special exception review, just to do the unit. I'm not sure if that's clear. And that's it. That's the 24. Sorry I kept you so long. But as I said, if you have questions about any particular one, I'm happy to see what I can address. Thanks.
You can just do me a favor. I've been screenshotting your amendments, but I missed the first page. In other words, I'm asking if you go back to that page, and I can do that. So then I have, I think, all 24. Thank you. I love the new allowing the dwelling and accessory building by right now. That's very helpful.
Frank, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Joel, quick question on designated, let me see, what do you call it? Designated uses in neighborhood mixed use zones. Does designated mean by right?
They're all by right. Designated actually means that they're required. So in neighborhood commercial zones, a certain portion, it's kind of like the arts zones in this respect. A certain percentage of the frontage of the building has to be devoted to those designated uses. And like I said, it includes a fairly broad range of uses, including retail, including eating and drinking, including service uses. We're simply proposing to add one more permitted use as a designated use, so it would count towards that streetscape frontage requirement.
All right, thank you for that. And then my second question has to do with the premises outlined for all of these amendments are based on, will you go back to those premises for these amendments?
This one?
Yes. Um, what appears to me, I know that some folks in my neighborhood have been talking about the difficulty with the eating slash drinking definition and how it's sort of conjoined in the arts overlay, and therefore, which is different, I guess, from a neighborhood zone that you've delineated in this presentation. But the eating drinking use is to me, and I think well established in meetings by my community with you, as to be sort of obsolete and not harmonious to mixed use zones because of the ambiguity and the differential adverse impacts of eating versus drinking establishments. Maybe drinking establishments that are late night, very different impact than a restaurant with eating. So there was nothing you guys could find sort of as an impetus here to provide the entire district with some revised perspective on eating slash drinking uses in mixed use neighborhoods.
Yeah, we've certainly heard that question before as well. That would fall into the category of certainly being probably too big, too comprehensive a change. We felt to deal with as part of an omnibus text amendment. We've heard from a variety of sources, not just on the arts in the art zoning area, that how we classify eating and drinking establishments is a little bit antiquated, and it does need a comprehensive look. And so we agree that it needs that comprehensive look. It's just beyond the scope of something that we could take on as part of this text amendment. So when that comes forward, that will come forward, as a separate text amendment, kind of like alley lots or the rear additions that you saw earlier this evening.
Thank you. And then might I just ask a more clarifying perspective on it might come forward or it will. Is there thoughts about it? Is it a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan review process? Can you have any elucidation there?
I don't. It's certainly been, like I said, it's been raised a number of times, including by, on occasion, by members of the BZ and the Zoning Commission. So we know that that's an issue out there. It's definitely kind of in our in our list of things that we need to look at.
Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Any other committee member questions? Members of the public. Okay, any additional committee comment before we Awesome. I'm not seeing any, and I don't have anything else to add. I appreciate
thanks very much for
Yes.
doing this. I mean, I looked at this thing and it was massive, but you presented it in a way that really made it clear and very helpful. So thank you.
Thank
Agreed.
you. I would, suggest that if you're at all once again, one last time, if you're at all interested in any of these, to check out the full record on ISIS, or we can certainly send you a copy of one of our bigger presentations, because I kind of just skimmed over the surface here. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to deal with a lot of the nuts and bolts. The rest of these guys don't.
You're blessing M curse, Joel.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to retire.
Yeah. All right. I don't see any additional comments, so I think we can move on. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, especially given the late hour. I think this was very illuminating, so I'm glad you were able to make it.
There we go. Great. Well, thank you for having us. Thanks
Yes.
again.
Okay, committee members, we are now moving into new business. I don't have anything on the schedule for new business. Do any of you? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I think we can adjourn for the day. It was quite the active committee meeting, so I really appreciate all of you sticking around to the end. There will definitely be some follow-up about the V Street conversation with DOB, so when we get that from DOB, I will make sure to share that with all of you. And we can make sure to share that with the ANC and with the public as well. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.